to the Earthborne Games Podcast. I'm your host, Anders Carlson. Joining me, as always, Andrew Fisher.
Hello.
What's up, Andrew? How you doing today?
Hey, Anders, it's going really good. Are we going to do this level of energy the whole time?
Shocks.
You were true to your word from before we started recording. You brought the energy.
I was saying that I have low energy. I said I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I wish I could have come up with like a nickname for Fisher. The Fish.
Feel like you could give it a bit more than my standard nickname.
But anyway, Anders and the Fish.
I'm a bit low energy too.
Are you? Yeah. Well, you just had a baby. I'm cutting the act right now. It's done.
Okay. We're
so
chill now.
So how's the baby? How's the baby, Fisher?
Well, I don't know. Do we want to introduce Evan and Andrew before I get into it, or do you want me to talk about the baby?
It's kind of like old school. Okay, let's intro everybody. Evan's here. Evan's a minute. I'm Anders Carlson. Did I say that?
I don't know.
Yes, Earthborne Games Podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's come back to normal. Maybe I'll level out now at like a pretty good normal energy. Welcome to the show, Evan. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
And then we've also got Andrew Navarro.
Hi, Anders.
What do you think?
Everyone is like frightened and under their desks, or they've drove off the road, depending upon where they're watching or listening to this, and are recovering from that needle burying Casey Kasem like introduction to the podcast.
I've got the wrong podcast.
That's right. It's like the top 50. Top 100. What did Casey Kasem do? Was that the
top 10?
American
top 40?
Top 40?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear that back. See how well I did. I'm sorry to shock you all. That's what shocks do.
That's right.
Let's talk about Fisher. Fisher, I can't believe it's only been 2 weeks since you had a child.
I know.
And you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. We've got this whole parenting thing handled. It's
right.
Great. Hopefully Sam can't hear me from the other room as she juggles both the child and the dog right now.
She's a good one.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, he is just over 2 weeks old. He was born just after midnight 2 weeks ago, like Monday night / Tuesday morning. So
like right before we did the last podcast, I believe. That was like the day of.
Right before. It's super exciting. It was a bit harder than we had initially anticipated. I won't get into like the super nitty gritty, but like on Monday we were like, this is the most professional labor. Like, we're going to be done in a business day. This is going it's going pretty well for Sam. And like we said it, our mistake was we said it out loud is we were like, this is going great.
This is efficient.
And then that was hubris, and things took a turn. We had some difficulties, and after like another from our hubris, it took another like 8 hours, and ended in an emergency C-section. So that was a little hard, but like
Man, I remember that was the one thing you said you were hoping not to happen when I talked to you last.
Yeah, well, it's like
to do all the labor.
Sometimes you have to do a C-section. Sometimes you have a long labor. I feel like the worst of both worlds is you have a long labor and then have to do a C-section at the end anyway.
Yeah.
And then we had some complications and stayed in the hospital for about a week. So yeah, it's been about 2 weeks, but like it barely feels like that because like that first week was just kind of this haze. Like
at the hospital.
We were at Fairview Riverside. I think Andres, you were there as well, right?
Evan as well.
We were there too.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and they have some really nice postpartum rooms. So
the LED lights.
Yeah, it's full RGB setup for gamers. But so it actually like of a room to be stuck in for a week wasn't a bad one. And like at the end of it, well, some of the stuff we went through was kind of hard. Sam was actually really glad we had the week because like we had so much help. Like the nurses were great. We had consultants coming in, and like she thinks she's way further recovered from the C-section than she would have been if we had just gone straight home, right? Like, because she was just able to rest. We had people to help with Wyatt, and like, so we're actually a little grateful for the week in the hospital, honestly, at the end of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you told me you were going to Riverside, I told you to try the pudding.
I did try the pudding.
Did you try it?
You described the pudding as having like whipped cream, and we ordered it from the like cafeteria, and it just came the saddest pudding in this little like peel off cup.
Oh, that is not the pudding I know and love.
Well, you described this other pudding, but I found at the coffee shop they still had a pudding that kind of matched your description, so I also got that pudding, which was much better than the sad cup from the cafeteria.
Yeah, the pudding we had seemed like homemade, and it had like a little whipped cream on the top in a bowl.
Oh, yeah.
It was not a snack pack at all.
Yeah, we had like an off-brand snack pack is what we got from the cafeteria. I know.
And I also said you should steal one of the wraps. What do they call them? What do you call those?
Swaddles.
Swaddles. Did you take them?
Yeah, they give them to you. I didn't steal it.
Did you get a fan, like a little fan too?
We didn't get a fan.
We got a little. Well, I guess we had Signy in the summertime, so that's.
Yeah.
Why we got a fan.
I got a fleece swaddle.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, we got one from them, and then they gifted us one when we left, so we have two of them, and they're like, I credit them with any of the sleep we're getting because like it's got like Velcro, so you can really like strap down that baby.
Yeah.
Does he like being swaddled?
His hands free.
I miss those days.
Do you get a sense that he likes being swaddled?
Oh yeah, he really likes it.
It's interesting. It seems like every baby likes it except for our daughter. She did not like it at all.
I didn't do it.
No.
Yeah. Andrew, didn't you tell me you still swaddle your sons?
No, that's right.
Every night.
Yeah, 16 years old. You're never too old to be swaddled.
Yeah, just go into your high schooler's room and start wrapping a blanket aroround him.
Wouldn't that be kind of nice just to be like, a little potato, little burrito?
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like even as an adult, like every once in a while, like if you get tucked in, like if you're feeling sick or something, and you get tucked in,
it's nice.
Feels nice. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like being in the womb.
Not swaddled necessarily. Your arms, like completely immobilized,
like a mummy.
Yeah. My oldest, we swaddled him like really tight. Like he was like a little, like just like a little mummy. But then Sam, he always wanted to have like one arm out.
That was interesting.
That was his deal. Yeah.
Cool guy.
No, we've been strapping him down for and we've been getting good sleep with that. So
nice.
We're just gonna keep whatever gets us some sleep at night.
That's right.
We'll
keep
do
rolling into whatever works. That's the key.
You have to sleep in the daytime too. Take it whenever you can get it.
We've done some naps. I managed to give Sam a nap here before the podcast. So
nice.
Hopefully, juggling the kid and the dog, she'll be okay. But so far, it's been really great. Like I don't know, he's a nice little kid.
What's one thing that surprised you that you weren't expecting?
I don't know if anything surprised me, to be honest. At the moment, like it's not a very fun answer, but we're like Sam and I are very like research ahead type people. So I read like 3 or 4 books on this. We watched YouTube videos, like so.
Nothing like this kind of feels different than I thought it would feel or anything like that. It's just.
I mean, like
exactly.
A lot of people tell you that like there's this magical moment the first time you see your child or whatever. And I'll be like, I think this is the one thing that like bucked expectations is I mean, I don't know if this turns me into a sociopath, but like I didn't necessarily have that moment, which was like, I think maybe not surprising, but a little like, I don't know, like I was worried about it, right? Like, it's a little hard because it's like a C-section, right? So they like,
oh yeah. Hold it up to the
hold down this
plastic.
Like tarp and like hold up this like like and it's like this traumatic event, you're in surgery and they just hold up this like wiggling baby and it's like look and now we have to take him away and like so it's not like this like magical moment necessarily and so like I didn't necessarily I was worried about Sam and like worried about the baby and just like all these emotions, so I didn't have that like magical moment of like that like a lot of people describe. You read all these books and everybody always talks about like the first time you see your kid or whatever. And so I was like worried. I don't know, like, you know,
no, it's totally understandable, especially I was in like panic mode and Megan didn't even have a C-section, so like I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's the panic mode, maybe.
Yeah, and like, you know, so I definitely like felt connection later, right? But it was like more of a slow build, like holding this kid and like, you know, rocking him to sleep and like dealing with his crying in the hospital room later that I like felt the connection more.
That's I think from my experience, that's hard to remember exactly, obviously, because you know, like you described, like there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to process. Yeah, it definitely wasn't like the moment of birth that you're like zing. Like for me, it was similar to that. It's like when I held Sebastian for the first time, like that was kind of the thing. You just kind of like felt. I was like, oh my god, like this is my son. This is amazing. I think that's really where it really kind of hit home for me too. If I can like feel back to that moment, like I feel like that's when I felt it for the first time, not just seeing it happen. Seeing it happen is like, holy shit, it's happening. Look at that.
Yeah, you definitely.
It's
that's
surreal.
A boy. Yeah, like looking at this little creature, you know, like you start having all these like this little human will define the rest of my time on this planet, right? Like, and that's like
a lot of heavy stuff.
Those moments are more the moments I started feeling connection than.
Yeah, but that's great.
Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning into the Dad Cast.
Yeah, no, that's a good vulnerable realization to share, Fisher. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a different experience. I think we had the same thing, Fisher, like the C-section, and then just like pushing her up to the plastic tarp in between and like touching her through the plastic. I felt like really in awe in that moment, though. I don't know. I was zoned in. I was honed in on that.
Nice.
Maybe I'm not very thoughtful. I should have been more concerned. I was just like, whoa, that's what the kid looks like that was in your belly. What the hell is that? I was crying. I was like, yeah, that was a crying emotional moment for me. But then like after that, then I started to have like the doubts like you're talking about, like I should be more connected feeling to this thing. Like, you know what's going on here? It's a slow build. Build. You create the bond, I think.
Definitely.
I was more into the pudding.
That was the notable thing, was the pudding.
I just like bad like free food. I mean, it's not even free, but it felt free. I just like bad like food delivered to the room, even if it's, you know, just like, I don't know, fun.
Everything about that place was awesome except for the food. Like I went down to get like a burger and it was like it wasn't great. It was bad. But everything else was wonderful.
The omelet was pretty legit. They had real eggs.
I had the omelet too.
To your point about it not being free, Anders, like my baby already has bills. They don't bill you, they bill the baby for a bunch of stuff.
That's low.
Like Wyatt has more debt than me right now. Because we don't have because you have to wait for it to get him insurance, you know? So it's wild.
Sorry.
That's so strange. Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect excuse to not pay the bill.
Yeah.
Or he needs to get a job.
Yeah, get a job, baby.
That's right.
All right, let's get into what you've all come to listen to. It's more about Earthborne Rangers, the game. And we're going to start with work stories. I am a robot. Okay, Fisher.
Yeah.
Let's talk to you some more.
All right. Well, I've been out with a baby, so not as much to report on the work stories. As I get back here, I'm kind of catching back up. For those of you who frequent our Discord, you've already seen me this week, kind of catching back up with a bunch of rules questions. I've shouted you out before, Chub Frog, but like you've been a rock star, like on BGG and Discord while I was out, just helping people out and like collecting a bunch of the questions. It made it really easy to kind of come back and just answer everything. So thank you.
I'm
really appreciate it.
I'm a
That's
new
awesome.
fan. I'm a new fan of Chub Frog. I haven't really been on the Discord much throughout this whole time, but popping in there recently, I'm like, I like this Chub Frog.
It's been amazing and so much help to new players, especially like, you know, I wanted to be there for them, but like answering rules questions while juggling everything else just wasn't as feasible. I dropped in a couple times, but so I'm doing some catch up with that right away. Also catch up with kind of similarly in a smaller community, our testers who have been playing our campaign expansion, doing some catching up with them and getting them all updated after I was out. And then just kind of diving back into stuff after that. So it's a catch-up week for me, but I'm excited to be back into it.
Sweet. Let's talk to Evan. Evan, are you ready? What you been up to?
You know, I don't have much to report as usual. Like I'm just doing art. doing art.
Yeah.
I'm working on path card art, the remaining path card art for Legacy of the Ancestors, and you know, just knocking them out as quickly as I can. And
they're looking good.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish I could share some of this stuff, but
yeah, do you have any pieces from that you've been working on this week that like aren't hyper spoilery that you can talk about?
Well, I don't know if Evan would know necessarily how spoilery they were.
Given pieces.
Yeah, I mean, what about the one I was working on today, Andrew, that you said the sketch for?
You know, it's like it's hard to say because what people think of as spoilers.
That's true.
I'm constantly surprised with the stuff that they get. You know, they do in the black boxes on the Discord. It's like, they put that in a black box. All right, I guess that's a spoiler. I suppose.
Yeah, when a lot of the game is exploration, like any content can kind of be viewed as a spoiler. So I could see that.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through looking at all the art in our chat, Evan, to see if there's anything that we could share.
It's not a huge deal.
A lot of it was thankfully stuff that Joe's already done concept sketches for, and I was getting a lot of fun feels of like early Star Wars movies when they're making, like I watched that what was that documentary called about Lucasfilm when they're filming Star Wars and stuff. I guess it was all of the Lucasfilm movies. It's the documentary on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. I forget what that.
Light Magic.
Light Magic. Yeah.
That one. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, I love the part where there were there's a team making like the spaceships in the US while George Lucas was in the UK like filming scenes. So like he wasn't they were just kind of throwing stuff together from like model kits, you know, like World War II model kits, and then it just became canon like Y-wings and X-wings. And I kind of get that feeling when I like look at Joe's sketches, like what was Joe intending here? He's got a new job. I can't really get a hold of him right now. So I'm just going to kind of wing it. And I just kind of reimagine his sketch or whatever. And I think it's kind of a fun, you know, and then Andrew oversees that. And it's kind of a fun, like unique process. You know, I've never really worked on things that it's fun because I mentioned it before. It kind of takes the creative load off me. And I can just kind of go into like a production mode and create something. And, you know, with working within parameters like that, I already have the thing, what it's supposed to look like. I just can have some fun with it and try to find a cool way to pose it or whatever to make it fit in the art window. So,
yeah,
it's been
like
fun.
I think Joe also, you know, like he's got his sketches aren't like super tight. So there are bits of the sketch where it's like, some things are more clear than others, and so like there's just times where you just need to go in and just interpret like I don't know what that detail is. It's this now.
I will say I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the thing I was working on today when Joe first shared the sketch, I couldn't get this particular thing out of my mind from an old movie called Flight of the Navigator. There's like this little NASA robot that the kid escapes this government, I don't know, lab in.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, it doesn't even, the thing I'm working on doesn't, there's aspects to it that remind me of it, but I'm just reading into it too much from my own memory. So like, it's kind of funny. I love that movie too. It's great.
Yeah. Well, it's got a lot of personality. The thing you're working on today. It's pretty great. Yeah. I think like everything that comes through, I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, I think when people encounter these cards, they're going to be very happy.
Cool.
Yeah. They look great.
Excited to see those.
But other than that, working on some materials like banner designs for packs.
Fun.
So that's cool.
Our whole booth, right? Not just some banners, right?
Yeah. Well, banners, and then
it's a pretty simple booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, you gotta frame it like you designed our booth, Evan.
What are the components of the booth? You got the table with banners around it. We have
3 tables, 2 banners, and we have a printed table throw over one of the tables. So we'll have two tables for demos, and then one table that'll have whatever product we bring down or have shipped there for sale, and that's it. So yeah, it's a couple things we're printing at a local place, and then we're renting tables and chairs from the whatever service that runs the convention hall that charges $1 bajillion per chair. ridiculous pricing.
Damn. To haul a chair out there from Minnesota would be more, right? So
yeah. Maybe.
Is it in Philadelphia? Where is it?
It's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You want to see if my friend can give you some chairs? A friend,
just from his house.
Yeah, just from his house. A couple lazy chairs. Some IKEA.
I bet you they wouldn't let him in. Like, no, can't bring those chairs in here, sir.
I wonder if any board game booth ever tried to recreate like a wood panel basement, where kids used to play board games.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, some old couches and the wood paneling, and just go full recreate the basement.
Yeah. Who did the Stranger Things board game? I would imagine they would probably do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Missed opportunity if they did.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Evan. And then Andrew.
Yeah. So
I want to tell you that I got my email today that my game is on the way.
Yay!
Yeah. I should get mine on Thursday, by the way.
Yay, it's happening.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so everyone out there who is like, where's my game? Know that these guys still haven't gotten their games.
The guy who drew a ton of your game doesn't actually have his game yet.
And that's me trying to get it to both of you sooner. Like I actually bumped you up to the
thank you.
top of the queue, and it didn't work. It did not work. Best laid plans. But yeah, I'm almost to the point where I'm not going to have to talk about fulfillment at all anymore on this podcast, which is super exciting. We're North American fulfillment's almost done. We're supposed to be done by the middle of November, and based on all I can do is judge it on the chatter on Discord until I hear from the fulfillment company that they're done. But it sounds like they've really picked up the pace this past couple weeks, or this past week or so. So their estimate of being done by mid-November, I think, knock on wood, sounds like it might be pretty accurate. And we'll have some people who will lag behind, obviously, because that it seems to be the case in every region we've done fulfillment in to this point. So there might be some people who don't get their stuff till later, but usually those people know who they are. So like if you haven't paid for shipping, or if you were like super late filling out your survey, like you did it last week, then those people will be at the end. But yeah, so it's almost done. Also Australia, New Zealand, the games were supposed to arrive in port 2 days ago. So I haven't gotten an update on that yet, but that's almost about ready to kick off. So yeah, it's almost completely done, which is super exciting. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about anymore once it's done.
I don't know. We can talk about the game itself.
Yeah, well, we can start just talking about Legacy of the Ancestors a little bit more, I think. Getting into that. Fatherhood. Yeah, speaking of which,
sorry,
I've been working on that. So still working my way through the campaign guide. I'm playing. I went through the location we talked about in the meeting yesterday, Fisher, for that. Devi was like, that place is crazy.
That fatigues you like wild?
Yes.
Did it match the description we had in the meeting?
Oh my God, I got wrecked.
Yeah.
I made it out. I did make it out. But it was hard. It was really hard.
It's probably one of the places we went to mean. So
it's
easy to dial
pretty
back.
intense. It's pretty intense. But
as we talked about, the testers match your description there, and remember that you generally outperform most of our other players when it comes to like testing performance. So
yeah. Well, the thing is I was trying to hang out there to do stuff. I think if I didn't, because I had a mission there that I needed to do. So if I didn't have to do that, I probably would have just said bye.
Yeah.
Get the heck out of there. But yeah, it was really challenging, but it was fun. I did power my way through, and I almost injured out, which also is a thing that almost never happens to me. It was a very, very, very difficult location. But anyway, so I've been doing that. I've been working on the campaign guide. It's taking longer than I want, as always, but I think the work is good, and the writing is coming together. So that's been fun. And then, I've been spending a lot of time looking at again, thanks to Chub Frog, these last couple of weeks in particular, making it so I barely ever have to weigh in on anything rules wise, which I really appreciate. So I've been spending a lot of time on the Discord looking at rules questions, looking at the campaign discussion, both on the Team Covenant Discord and on our own. And that's been really interesting. Like, I've had to restrain myself from jumping into conversations sometimes. So just let the conversations be and absorb it. And it's been really fascinating to see the things that some people have difficulty with, the things that sometimes the exact same thing that other people have no difficulty with it whatsoever. It's just been interesting to see those conversations happen, and ultimately to see even the people who have difficulty are like, yeah, once you figure out how to play, it's awesome. So that's the important thing, I think. And I think that's always been my thinking about the game, and the complexity level, and any difficulty anyone have getting into it. As long as you have the patience to get used to the systems and the rhythm of the game, then it'll be really rewarding. And that's always been my thinking about just games in general, like games that I like the most. None of them, I would say, are very easy to learn necessarily, but they all feel really good once you figure all that stuff out.
Okay, we lost connection there, but we're back. And I had just said to Andrew that I am someone who has lower patience, and I'm sort of an ADD kind of person, that I can what's the word, attest to that Earthborne is one of those games where you get through it and then suddenly you forget that it was complex at all. What's that about? it can feel so complex when you're learning some rules for something, and then you're like, how did this ever seem complex?
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, I guess you're uniquely positioned to be able to speak to that, which I think is I think it's great because everyone could watch you go through that experience in video form.
I'm worried to go back. I've had this like low level fear in the back of my mind of once I have the game, I'm going to have to play it so that we can talk about it on the show. And I forgot all the rules, and I'm not going to have the Andrews holding my hand. I'm going to have to,
There's plenty of videos out there now.
You'll
right?
Yeah, you'll
That's
get back
good.
into it.
I'm going to use those videos.
We've gotten requests, by the way, to have you back on the Playcast. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might
people
be busy
want to
that
see
night.
more Anders.
Wait, you didn't say a date, did you? But I think I'm glad people want me on. I would love to. I want to learn. I want to play it with my friends. That's my. I want to show it to some friends that are into games, and try to teach them. And I think that will help me really, solidify those rules in my mind.
Nice.
And then I'll come back on. Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun.
I think, one thing I wanted to say quick was, like, Andres, you talked about, like, you learn the game, and, like, as you're learning, it can be a little daunting, and then once you know it, you're like, how did I ever consider this complex, right? Like, once you've kind of internalized it. And I think that's actually something we struggled with a bit on this game, because often I've found that people can, like, simplify what they're learning by understanding exactly what it's for, right? Like, when you're learning Magic the Gathering or something, you're like, okay, this card, I see how it lowers your life total. That is my goal, right? I have this one goal of lowering your life total. I see how this card translates into that. I understand this card a little bit, right? One of the difficulties we had is that, like, because we wanted to be more freeform and let you do a lot of different things, we couldn't give you that one goal of, like, get rid of your opponent's life total or, like, gather clues or whatever it might be. We have, like, all sorts of different things you could do. So whenever we explain a thing, we can't say this is how it helps you kill your opponent. We have to say, like, well, this helps you travel around, but you might want to do that to explore more. And, like, but it doesn't, like, equate to winning, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, not having that grounding was actually a little difficult in explaining some of our concepts, I found.
I think too, like, not wanting to push anyone in one particular direction. Like, I think the only kind of nudge we give if anyone in the rules is we say, hey, maybe if you're playing solo, don't choose a one fit ranger. But even that, you could do it without it, like, there are ways. So, like, because there was someone in the Discord said to say something like, and if you're playing solo, you should have said that they need scouting in their deck. And I'm like, well, if that's how you want to play, I mean, it's a good, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I think that's challenging. Like, and that's, I think, been even a thing if I am having a conversation with someone on the Discord about something, or they're confused, or, like, they're critical. Those, not necessarily those are the same. They're not both confused and critical, but one or the other. Like, I don't want to push them too hard in one direction to answer that confusion or criticism, because it is intended to be open. So it is a challenging thing to try to communicate that way, because the systems are just so created for you to encompass so many different actions. So anyway, it's been interesting to see everyone finally get to play the game, and then also to be able to read, like, Darren's campaign playthrough. He has, like, his own little thread that he was talking, like, day by day, everything he does, and that's been really fun to watch. Made a thread for typos on the Discord, and that's been really helpful. People have got some new things there that we haven't got yet. So that's been good. So yeah, it's been really great watching everyone finally get a chance to get the game to the table, and that's just going to continue over the next few months, which is super exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's everything I've been doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Let's move on over into listener questions. And our first question comes from Nathaniel. Can you talk a bit about the color pie? At first, it seemed like fitness would primarily have exploration, but that doesn't seem to be the case. If there hasn't been one on it, I'd love to hear more about the design philosophy on that. Why have the colors if they don't follow certain rules?
Oh, I saw this question. So, I was like, oh man, yeah, Fisher's. This is going to be a Fisher heavy episode.
Yeah, okay. There's like a few Fisher questions, and then there's definitely a few Navarro.
No, I think it's great. Too. No, as I say, you're back. So let's dive in, because I'm like, oh, I know he's going to have something to say about this.
So for the uninitiated, color pie is a terminology I think invented by Mark Rosewater to discuss Magic the Gathering. And like there's like 5 colors, and it kind of denotes which mechanics go with which colors and which mechanics go like overlapping between 2 colors, and it's the whole organization of which mechanics go where in kind of factioning all your cards to make them feel different. And so the question here is about our 4 aspects, and all of our ranger cards each correspond to those aspects. And so asking about how those work, and specifically thinking fitness would primarily have exploration, is about approach icons, which are the icons you can discard your cards for to add to tests. So yes, we do have some association, like with exploration with fitness, for example, and connection with spirit because of the common tests. However, we didn't want to enforce that like super heavily mechanically. So the approach icons are not associated with a color. If you actually look through our sets, where they're kind of weighted, and I think people brought this up in the Discord, but they're associated with our various sets of starting cards. So your different specialties and backgrounds each focus on a different approach icon set. And so all of their kind of cards in that usually focus on 2 of the approach icons. They do have all access to all 4, but they'll usually focus on 2 of them. And from there, a lot of what the approach icons do has to thematically do with what the card represents in the game. So those don't have a ton of association directly. We wanted to really keep them divorced, because when you play, well, our tests mix and match those aspects and approach icons in all sorts of ways, right? And so similarly, we wanted your cards to do the same thing. The color pie, though, does exist in other places. A lot of the game mechanics are kind of coded to certain aspects. This is mostly based on theme, but for example, there's the obvious coding that like the common tests really broadcast, where Spirit surrounds adding progress to beings and manipulating beings. Fitness is very tied to adding progress to features. Awareness is very tied to evasion and avoiding things, but there's kind of secondary themes where like fitness is tied to harm a bit, Spirit's tied to soothing fatigue, awareness is tied to searching and like scouting and looking through decks, and then focus is this kind of utility stat that really focuses on the unique thing about your given specialty or background and does all sorts of interesting utility stuff. So we do have kind of a color pie in the output of how the aspects interact with the game, but we don't tie the approach icons into that. Those are kind of their own thing and part of a different little ecosystem. The last thing I'll say about this is that we do break it sometimes. You'll notice places we break it because there's like thematic reasons that we want to break it. And also breaking it can be really interesting from an action economy thing, where instead of being locked to, oh, I have 2 fitness, therefore this is all that I can do to progress these features, by having key tests that show up in the environment or key cards that kind of break our color pie a little, it gives these interesting choices and these moments of like, when do I leverage being able to convert this energy from normally being able to do this one thing to being able to do this other thing, and when do I use that? So we do bend and break our color pie more than like a game like Magic might, because it creates these interesting decisions because of our resource system. So you won't see us as a strictly adherent, like we can break and bend it a little bit more for those interesting decisions. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah.
Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. I think like the one thing there's a document that we haven't like made public, but where a lot of that comes from, especially for the tests anyway, not necessarily the cards themselves, comes from this document that has all the combinations of aspect plus approach, and then like all the thematic things they could possibly mean. It is not, I guess not possibly, it's not completely comprehensive, but it's a good guide for us to determine how we should be representing things thematically in the game, and then what aspect and approach are used. And when we follow that guide, I think we just kind of inherently go down these lanes that we try to stay pretty consistent. And I think maybe that document is even more so about like keeping consistent use of approach icons, which isn't necessarily exactly answering this question. But I think that also plays into that categorization of things and helps when you play to when you see something and you see a test, it functions like you think it should, and it's using the aspect you think it should. But yeah, I guess that doesn't really, so like when I read that question, I thought he was asking more about like the cards themselves and like the ranger cards, but not necessarily the approach icons on them.
Yeah, he references exploration, as he says, like fitness would primarily have exploration.
Oh, I
see.
And
in one of the other comments he had around it, I definitely could tell he was asking about approach icons a bit.
Okay. Yeah, but because I know, like, because when I saw this question, I was like, well, I know we have it because you and I talked about that a lot, because there was a lot of stuff that like I was like, let's just break it. And you're like, no, we have to create good player expectations around these cards so they're not doesn't feel like a total random mess. And you were right.
Yeah, I mean, we can break it sometimes, right? But we have to like kind of make decisions, and it can really change, especially when we're designing the really honed in missions, the ones that take a whole day, like a finale or something. What outlets you have for what types of energy becomes incredibly important, because we're creating this little ecosystem that is like the same every time you play the mission. And so like we'll have to sit there and be like, okay, based on the mix of cards that we know is going to show up here, we're actually light on a spirit outlet, right? And so how do we help people bend and break that so that spirit can come into play here?
Right.
Sounds a lot like you guys are like DMing a RPG. You're just you're working to allow things to happen, which I think is cool.
That is a good analogy. I feel like we're GMing a game for thousands of people.
Is it GMing or DMing? I always screw that up.
D&D is DMing. Everybody else is GMing.
That's right.
So D&D does Dungeon Master and everybody else does Game Master.
Yeah, but even in D&D, you're GMing. You just get to call yourself the DM.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Great question, Nathaniel. And our next one is from Chub Frog. The personality attributes, when not used as part of specific combos, are usually early targets to replace with reward cards, which is to say among the weakest cards in your starting deck. Is there design space for more powerful attributes that are on par with the other starter cards, or even powerful attribute reward cards? Or is there a design reason that you want players' decks to focus on the other card types?
There is room for more powerful attributes. It's a little bit of a difficult design space just because it's doing things that modify tests, and tests is a time when there's already a lot else going on. So we don't want to like super overburden that moment with complexity, but there is room for that. I'll leave it at that for now.
You could spoil it, I think.
I mean, well, we're doing more personalities in our next expansion, our Ranger card expansion, that play with that space more. We also, you see a couple attributes like Strider that exist outside of personalities, and we are continuing to explore that space. Davia's done some cool stuff with that. So some exciting effects that encourage you to do things with tests you wouldn't normally do, and like change how you like put an extra layer on to try to get bigger rewards. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by those. We didn't intentionally having people swapping out their personalities, and I will go to bat. Some of those personality cards are still in my deck at the end of that campaign. So like not all of the some of them are very good combo enablers, and so I'll stand by some of those cards. But it was just kind of a side effect of the way our kind of cards shook out and their priorities. And I wouldn't necessarily call it something we like really, really targeted, but it was like an emergent behavior in how people customize their decks that we decided was acceptable. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to like bend over backwards to design around, I think would be my take on that.
I think it'd be cool to do a role that cared about attributes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that would be cool.
Uh-huh. Did cool stuff with them.
Yeah, that's a good solution. And then there was another question from Chub Frog. Is it a design goal to keep the Rangers distinct based on their original backgrounds and specialties? If so, what are some ways to both keep rewards exciting over multiple campaigns while also preventing all Ranger decks from converging into a pile of reward cards?
There's definitely, we want to keep identity. I think that some of it comes from like we build up a bunch of synergies and combos even in the starting cards. Some of our starting cards, I mean, intentionally or not, some of our starting cards are more powerful than most rewards. And so I think you're unlikely to swap all of them out because there's just some powerful cards in the starter sets. Also, like we set you up with these combos, and so you're unlikely to fully gut them, right? You're going to swap in rewards that build and synergize with the combos you already have. So we're kind of like seeding your deck. And I basically haven't seen a player who's just playing with the big old pile of reward cards. Maybe in a couple expansions, that deck might be possible. But I don't think a lot of people will necessarily do just that. I think you're more likely to see somebody who's using a few key awesome starting cards that still play to their specialty and or background, and then a bunch of rewards that play in those same themes because we build the reward cards to play with the Ranger cards that you start with.
Yeah, I'm sure someone out there will make the quote unquote optimal deck that maybe has all reward cards or something. I think it'd be an interesting challenge to try to make a deck that's all reward cards. I don't think it would be very good. Yeah, I think when I supplement,
you could get all right.
Yeah, you could get by, but I mean, you wouldn't be able to do a lot of, I think, the fun tricks that you get to do if you stick with your role. Like I feel like that's how I've used reward cards. Like some of them are just so good, you're like, okay, well that one's going in. But I think most of the time when I augment my deck, I'm either putting in reward cards for if I know I'm going to specific places and doing specific things, or I'm just trying to supplement what I already have going on. So like, I don't know, there's a bunch of rewards that I get that I don't even necessarily feel like I use or compelled to use with certain deck builds.
Our next question comes from Paul with a P. In your opinions, should expansions feel consistently difficult to meet the players' expectations from their experiences so far? I think Marvel Champions Galaxy's Most Wanted and how difficult/broken the Ronin scenario feels compared to the other content. That's what they think of. Okay. Is that okay, or does it suggest a mistake was made?
What do you think, Andrew,
I have opinions
about difficulty?
Well, so yeah, I don't think it needs to. I don't think an expansion needs to become more difficult. I think when we've been looking at Legacy of the Ancestors, the difficulty that I think we've wanted to make sure exists is that just knowing that people are going to come in with a whole bunch of reward cards, unlike in the core game where we have this ramp. We're kind of at the top of the ramp already when you come into this expansion. So like wanting to make sure that people have a good amount of challenge when they just from the jump. But then also trying to keep in mind that we don't know what rewards people will have or how many they'll have, or, there's a lot of factors involved. So I think, to my point earlier when I was talking about getting my butt handed to me at that one location, I think no number of reward cards was going to help me in that situation. So it's like creating the right kind of challenge that just isn't, punishing for punishing's sake. And so Galaxy's Most Wanted, like I feel, and this is just my opinion, was just because I know the people involved and everything that went into doing the core game, was a reaction to people saying the game was too easy. Because that was, I think, something that a lot of the hardcore Lord of the Rings and Arkham players said coming into Marvel Champions, like, oh, this is too simple. This game's for babies, blah, 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 blah. And then Caleb was like, all right, how would I just make it not fun?
Nightmare Deck Caleb is here now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what Galaxy's Most Wanted, why it turned out the way it did, was because it was a reaction to those people who, frankly, are the minority of the players who play that game. But I think it was a good lesson for those guys to learn, because I think the general consensus is, after that they leveled it back out and people had a good time with the expansions that came out after that one. So so I think that was definitely a reaction to, hey, this game is too easy. And then we'll just make it really hard. And then people are like, well, okay, maybe not that hard.
Well, and I think in a modular game like Champions 2, there's room for there to be a wide range of difficulty, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
Our relationship with difficulty is a little more tricky because, like, we can make some really difficult side content that only some people are going to achieve, but like our mainline story, we want to hit a certain difficulty amount to make you feel challenged and like interested and like get that tension. But we don't want any of our mainline story to be so difficult that it's just punishing, right? And so we have with a game like this, we have a slightly different relationship, at least in the main story content.
Cool. You cut out there. You were done talking, Fisher, I assume. Oh. Is everybody gone? Is everyone here?
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, we're all here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay. Your video cut out. Okay. All right. Cool. Our next question comes from Captain Ahab. If you could have a guest design, it's like Captain.
Mm-hmm.
The Captain says, if you could have a guest designer make a new game for EBG, Earthborne Games, who would it be and why? For example, I would love to see an Uwe Rosenberg game about sustainable farming in the Earthborne setting. P.S. Waiting for this game to arrive has made me think back fondly to 20 years ago, anxiously waiting for the mail person to deliver a Lego set I desperately wanted. Thank you for your work on the game and for giving me childlike excitement again. That's cool.
It is.
That's
awesome.
Cool.
What did Uwe Rosenberg do?
Oh, he's done all sorts of stuff. Basically, any game about farming.
Okay.
I'm actually curious, Evan. Do you have an opinion on this one?
No, I don't.
No.
I was trying to think of something funny to say, but I'm just so bad at remembering developers' names that Yeah, I got nothing. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I like the UV Rosenberg idea. Like, I think that'd be fun. I really like Caverna. I think that'd be cool. I don't know how Earthborne would feel as a Euro. I guess it'd probably feel okay. I guess if as long as the meeples were fun enough, so. It'd be all right. I think that'd be pretty fun. I wouldn't mind a Corey Konecka game too. That'd be fun. I'd like to see what Corey would do with the setting.
Yeah.
He's just such a good job taking theme and applying theme. I'd be interested to see what he would do with ours. What inspired him?
Yeah, I agree that Uwe is it's Uwe, right? Uwe?
Sure.
Uwe?
Yeah. Nah. He's not listening.
Yui.
I always say agree Yui. That like I think he'd be interesting to see. I also think like something really small, like smaller scale, just focusing on like we've maybe something like by like Elizabeth Hargrave, right? Like the kind of like smaller, like just kind of focused on one little element of the environment in our setting would be kind of cool.
Drew a game on the birds of Earthborne.
Well, like she did that Foxes game, and now she has the Mushrooms game, which has been on my mind due to certain things that are in the expansion. So like I definitely think like we've explored this kind of sci-fi ecology so much that it would be interesting to have a little game that explored that more in depth and more specifically.
I wouldn't mind a Cole Worley experience either. That would be interesting to see what he would do.
Yeah,
give me an asymmetrical Cole Worley design
with that art treatment too. Would be kind of cool.
Barron.
Yeah.
What about some sort of like Hive kind of game, either in world, like you mentioned, Fisher, like you're working on or you're playing around with the idea of like a game that denizens of the valley would play.
Yeah, actually, kind
of neat.
The stones thing, yeah.
I just know video game designers. I'm like racking my brain. Maybe Blizzard or something.
Blizzard's take on the Earthborne setting. Everybody gets big shoulder pads.
That's right. They'll just turn it into World of Warcraft. They have 3 IPs. 3 IPs. It's got to be one of the 3.
Yeah. No, they're taking on Earthborne as our next IP.
All right.
You heard it here first, folks.
Nothing fits better. Nothing fits better with our ethos than going with Activision Blizzard now merged with Microsoft. Like that's a match made in heaven.
Mega corporation.
But what if that'd be cool to see who does Fallout? What's their name again?
Bethesda.
Yeah, like what if they did an open world
Microsoft's Bethesda?
Microsoft presents Bethesda.
Hey, if they wanted to do it, I'd be down. They know where to find me.
All right. Next question comes from Bunkum. Oh, by the way, if you can hear that chirping sound, it's insects in the background of Andrew's South American home.
It's cicadas. Central America.
Oh, cool. Central American. I was just about to ask. All right. Next question comes from Bunkum. If there was another area of the world you could build an Earthborne Rangers campaign setting in, where would it be and why? Area of the world. Like of this world?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. This is something we talked a lot about early in development and kind of the setting and broader development. I guess I've heard you have quite a few different thoughts on this, Andrew. Where's your mind at about this now?
Yeah, well, I think I still like our plan. So like that really hasn't changed in my mind. Is that we're just going to be steadily expanding from this central location outward, and learning more about the world as it kind of opens up. I think I've said at one point too. It'd be really cool to hear from a creator in a different part of the world who is maybe inspired by the Earthborne setting. Is like, oh, I would want to do it in my, wherever I live. I think that would be interesting. Like, I think where part of the reason why I wanted to set the game in America is I felt really comfortable with that, and like creating a vision for the future of effectively where I live. Like, feel really comfortable doing that. Wouldn't feel comfortable like, yeah, this is my vision for what England would look like in the Earthborne setting. Like, I just don't.
Where is it meant to be? Did we talk about this before?
Yeah, it's in the Midwest. It's
Oh, yeah.
the people of the valley are from an area called the Midlands, which is the Midwest.
Okay.
And
like what state?
And then
Midworld.
Lower Midwest.
And then they're in now. The valley is in kind of like Colorado Rockies area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to think of the whole game all totally different, imagining they're just like in Missouri, It doesn't have the mystique that I was feeling.
Yeah, Missouri is underwater.
No offense.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Missouri is it's at the bottom of the Mississippi Sea. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, the Mississippi Sea. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think like in my mind, it's just going to expand outward. So we'll see. I think maybe encompassing all of America. Like now spending so much time now in Costa Rica, like it's definitely giving me ideas. But we brought the jungle north anyway, so we don't necessarily need to bring it down here. But I think that could be interesting too, to see what it would look like in places like this. Part of me feels like it wouldn't change much at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I think it'd be really cool though if like someone from somewhere else in the world got a hold of our game, got super inspired, was like, hey, I want to do something like wherever they are. I would love that. I think that'd be really cool to get their take on what the world would look like for them.
So the question, bunkum. Next question from TeddyFly45. What does dating/courtship look like in the Valley? Do they have something resembling marriage? How are their rituals different from ours?
Wow.
I love like how sci-fi handles like how it would be different like in the future. What sticks out is was that in Demolition Man? You guys remember Demolition Man?
Oh yeah.
The way they would have sex was like they would put on these helmets or something and just like touch hands.
Yeah.
It was great.
I believe when this question was posed in the Discord, I think Haley replied. She replied like, "And this will shape like all Earthborne fanfic going forward."
Oh yeah.
I like the idea of just like they. If someone's seeking courtship, they wear like some boutonniere type thing, like a back like an old fashioned,
Oh, they put it.
Say that I'm available, but it's like something funny, like an onion or something.
Yeah.
Wearing an onion on your belt.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think this is a fun question. So there is marriage. I don't know what courtship looks like necessarily, but I think you could probably like extrapolate some things based on some stuff in the core game. Yeah, it is like in my mind, I guess it's like it would be kind of this almost like old-fashioned-y kind of feeling thing. But yeah, we haven't really defined it. So I'm gonna make sure to say like we have not defined it yet. I don't know. I think we'll probably define it as story demands. But we do have one married couple in the game. So we do know that there is marriage.
There is marriage.
That's right.
Nice.
But that's I think the only couple we've defined yet, though you can imagine other characters have significant others and families and and all that. We do talk about a little bit in the core game, like in the lore book rather, a little bit about the society, but yeah, not about courtship in particular. I think that's fertile ground for role playing. I think even then, I think we'd want to keep the details vague so that the game master can have fun with that and make their players do all sorts of ridiculous things.
I think what you do is, if you, as a player, kind of like Baldur's Gate 3, if you want to court a human being, then you introduce a path card that's like a date, and you got to put progress on it.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there you go. You just go from there. You guys can work on that.
Did you just turn Earthborne Rangers into a dating sim?
Yeah. Well, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3, and all your companions are available.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wait for the romance expansion.
Yeah, that'd be really funny.
Don't tease that, because then we're gonna get demands for that. Like,
hey
man, if we get to the point where we can release a romance expansion, then maybe we've made it.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. My question is there still toilet paper in the future of Earthborne?
Nope, it's all bidets.
Okay, it's not. I just kept thinking about Demolition Man. Do you remember the 3 shells?
The 3 seashells.
Yeah, they never.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells. I still think about that probably twice a year. How would that work? All right. Okay, next question comes from Daniel Keim. Earthborne strikes me as a particular type of game that has the power to change players' attitudes or outlooks on things, or awaken a new interest in them. Wingspan was a game that did that for me. Turns out there are a lot of really cool birds all over the place. I'm curious if that happened for you as you were developing this rich new world of researching something for a specific detail within it.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
For me personally, like, a lot of the like hiking themes and stuff was already something I was pretty into, and so a lot of it was just like the project was a pretty good match for me coming in, and I could like leverage the stuff I was already into and interested in, and like dive more deeply into that. I think that in the expansion, I've definitely delved into research on topics I haven't explored that much. This is another like, what spoilers? I guess I already talked about mushrooms being somewhat relevant, but like I hated biology when I was in school. Like, so much memorization. I tried to take all of my science classes in physics because it was just math in disguise, which I really liked. So I avoided biology generally, but as we kind of build up the ecology of this game, and especially as we go underground, I got to do a bunch of research on weird underground stuff and phenomenons. Like, as you get into caves and stuff, like, I don't know, plants and animals get weirder, right? And so like I've been able to kind of dive into that, and so that's been really interesting. I don't know if it's like awakened a whole hobby in me or anything, but I think as far as this game leading me down rabbit holes and new learning, I think that stuff has captured me the most.
Cool.
Evan, on the visual side, have you had stuff that like has captured your interests?
Well, one of my worries when Andrew first reached out to me to bring me on board was that the prospect of doing like a lot of animals, because that was something I was kind of hesitant about. I know in my free time I wouldn't illustrate a lot of animals or creatures, and I felt really like that was a blind spot or a weakness. But having to do, the Aatrox and other animals, even though they're fantastical, they're still based on real modern day creatures, and it was pretty fun, and I gained like an appreciation for creating creatures and animals and stuff, and my free time I've been doing more of that, so it's
nice.
that's something that was surprising for me, like, because I never really, the intimidation of capturing an animal, like a four-legged creature, was always super intimidating, and it just made me not. I just stuck to people or like swords, stuff like that.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah. But now it's kind of fun, and it was fun to kind of have this realization that like a lot of mammals essentially just they kind of have the same bone structure, but just kind of different lengths here and there.
Interesting. Yeah.
And just you kind of hit this realization like, wow, I can kind of make a facsimile of this animal that I've never really done before, and get the kind of general impression of it, and then start referencing like actual pictures. And so that was cool and surprising for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
A whale is basically just a squirrel.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. I mean, there's a broad spectrum of mammals, but I don't know.
Just
No, I think that's really cool, and like
that is cool.
To know that you weren't that into drawing animals before, Evan. I wouldn't have guessed that because I think they turned out great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
Is it was it like the posing, or was it the anatomy, or what was like
the anatomy? The hardest? Is just with humans, it's like you got skin. There's no fur. The fur kind of conceals a lot, and a lot of ways you can kind of fake it, but in other ways you can't.
Mm-hmm.
and the fur kind of hides crucial anatomy points that you can usually find on a person when you reference. So
yeah, we spend a lot of time. I think we spend way more time going back to reference on animals than people. Like
yeah,
like I think the number of times I've said to you about a piece either you're doing or someone else is working on, like, let's go look at the reference for this. Yeah, way more on animals. It just they look so wrong if you are not if you're just doing them from your imagination. They can just go so much worse than people.
I made that mistake doing my first piece for you guys with these bats.
Yeah.
Just like the way the wings, the bones come off of the wings, I just kind of like had it in my mind what it was just from doodling bats. But then when you really, I think I even looked at, I obviously looked at references, but it just, you got to look close.
Yeah.
And I think, Andrew, you pointed out like, hey, that's not really what a bat wing looks like. I think I probably was thinking it's a fake bat. It's not a real bat. It's like it's a mythical bat.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want here, but that's not really how it works at all.
Yeah. Well, I think what, like everyone was saying, like getting that just enough realism there, I think is the important thing. And then you can fudge other details, but some of them are just too important. You got to anchor the piece with those things. So it feels logical to your eye.
Cool. Andrew, did you say anything that you got into?
I didn't. I feel a lot like Fisher, where a lot of this is stuff that I'm already into, which is why I wanted to go this direction to begin with. So yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like the thing that has been interesting for me is just becoming invested in this world to the degree that I've become invested, to where I start to think of it as like a real place that I need to care for. And I think I didn't really expect to be there because I've worked on lots of different worlds before, a lot of them at FFG, helped create the Keyforge setting, but I did a lot of work on Tiernoth and a lot of work on Android. But I never really felt as invested with those. Like you just kind of like do the rough thing and then it's just off in other people's hands, and you got other stuff to do, so you just move on. But spending so much time with this, where I want to like detail like every little thing. has been really cool. It's been really rewarding.
Nice. All right. We've got a couple more questions. One is from Christopher. Wouldn't it be cool to make a pin/badge deluxe ranger token? I really like the geometric, symmetrical look of it. With this kind of pin badge, you can play during your session on the table and then pin it to your backpack for a hike or something. Could be made out of wood, metal, or glass. What do you guys think about this idea?
That's cool.
For a second, I thought you were going to say that's not a question. That's
yes, wouldn't it be cool? Yes, that would be cool.
Yes, would be cool.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool is the question. Yeah, wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah,
I love that.
I guess the question I have is like the sustainability side of it. Make it out of reclaimed pewter.
Well, it could be like a tool as well. It could have dual.
Shuriken.
I saw a cool, shuriken. I saw a cool video on architectural pencils and why they're rectangular, so they don't roll off the table. And the long side is a 1/2 inch and the short side is a 1/4 inch, so it has this functionality. And maybe this badge could have something like that. It works as maybe there's a compass on it or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I like that idea. I also like the idea of this reminded me of having because we don't have a lead ranger token. We could also do like a fancy badge that is your lead ranger.
Oh, for the lead
badge,
ranger, yeah. Pin the lead ranger
on?
badge.
Yeah,
take your
just
position.
put it on your shirt. Yeah.
For some reason, that feels so dorky suddenly, doesn't it? You suddenly start pinning stuff on your clothing.
Here comes the fun police.
I want it to be a clasp for a cloak. That would be more in keeping with the setting, I think.
Yeah, that'd be
cool.
Cloak.
Yeah.
A whole cloak? No, that's not dorky.
That'd be
that's
awesome.
Cool.
For lead ranger cloak.
Yeah.
Next Game Found will have an add-on. Buy this cloak with this clasp. It is $200.
It is pretty cool though. All right. Yes, Christopher, it would be cool. We all agree. And our final question comes from Darren. Quick one today. We know the Earthborne team is going to be at PAX Unplugged this year. Will Anders be there as well? What would it take to get him to go? As a side note, not necessary to read on the podcast. I'll be missing it this year despite having earlier plans to go. So I'll have to catch you guys some other time.
Sad.
Well, Darren, I was going to go, but now that I know you're not going to be there, I think I'm going to pass.
What would it take to get you to go?
What is it?
It's
the beginning of December.
Yeah, the first weekend of December.
The first weekend of December.
You're probably working.
Come on out, buddy.
Yeah, probably work. If it's in the weekend, I don't know. We'll talk later. I mean, I would love to go. I don't know. Just money.
Yeah.
Money and time. Yeah, of course. That'd be fun.
Well, we're renting like an Airbnb, so there's you could crash somewhere in there.
Okay, so all I need is a plane ticket. Okay,
that's right.
I might think about this seriously. You guys might see me there.
For anybody else listening, for those I think we've mentioned before, but we'll be at PAX Unplugged this year, beginning of December. So if you're going to be there, please come by our booth, say hi. We'll be demoing the game for those of you who haven't played, and then for those of you who have, we'll be there hanging out, and we'd love to say hi to you. So please come check us out.
Yeah. If I can find a cheap flight, I'll go. I'll be there.
Yeah, we're at the back of the hall. We'll be next to a giant pole. You won't be able to miss us.
Next to the pole. All right, guys. That wraps up the question portion of the show. And now it's time for Anders Indie Game Corner. Let me cough. Okay. Well, I've last week I had the rant about Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Happen to have the box right here. I have the physical version. I finished it.
Nice.
I didn't 100% it yet, but I'm pretty close. I think as with Super Mario Odyssey, there's a lot of like end game content. Once you finish the game, you can unlock the harder stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just have one more level to unlock. So I've played every level except for one, I think. But my final verdict, last week I was saying this might be the best 2D Super Mario Brothers game, and I just think it is. I just really think it is. I'm gonna say that. I think it's better than any other one. I went and tried to play Super Mario World, the SNES one, to just because I was like, let's see if, because everyone's comparing these two. It just feels like not fun to play after playing Wonder. It's just kind of like so sluggish and floaty and weird, and I just did not enjoy playing it after playing this. So I love Super Mario Brothers Wonder. My only complaint is that it's like a classic Nintendo thing. Like first party Nintendo games are just so, it's just weird. Like I don't know if it's that I have ADD, but like there's just so much little like stop and start. Here's a little, you did this thing again. Do you want to, like menus that you've seen over and over again. Like we don't need to see this again. And the little guy pops out and says like, hey, do you want to go over to that next world? It's like, yes, I just want to go there. I don't want you to tell me that every time. So I got really impatient. It just like the whole flow of the game just felt very like having a lot of fun, and then just like boom, shuts down. Now you're going to be bored for like 2 minutes, and then you get to have fun again. It was just kind of like stop and start. But I don't know if everybody feels that way. I wanted to wrap it over to Fisher too, because I know he's been playing that game too.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree. Yeah. That was my hospital game.
Nice.
Because it was really easy to pick up and put down, right?
Yeah.
And just play in short stints. I didn't need a lot of attention. The other game I'll talk about on my turn had a lot of attention, and this one you could just like play a level and set it down and deal with the baby.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Anders, about the like level transition thing. Like, especially, world transitions, especially. Like, you finish a world, you get kind of little like their little cutscenes. The little caterpillar talks to you. Then you go to the new world. You have to go to the new world. You get there. They have a level that just gives you a Wonder Seed for free.
Oh, those
you don't
levels.
do anything.
Yeah, those levels.
Like,
why were they there?
Like, why do you exist?
Yeah.
And then the caterpillar talks to you some more. And like by now it's been like 3 minutes since you played.
And it'd be one thing if the dialogue was kind of fun and clever, but like Odyssey had kind of fun, well-written dialogue. This was just the most plain baby dialogue you could ever want, Just like, woohoo, you made it. Here's a Wonder Seed. Look out for that volcano. Kind of crap,
But despite that complaint, I do agree with you that I love the game. I don't know. I hold Super Mario World pretty highly, and like in some ways, I kind of like the weird rough edges and secrets that it took you a long time to unpack in Mario World. Whereas like this kind of still has that modern, polished to a sheen feel.
Sure, it does. Yeah.
And this is a weird complaint because like I'm really bad at platformers, but it might be too easy.
It is very easy. Yeah, there's like a couple levels that were pretty challenging, but yeah, it is quite easy. Yeah.
Like I'm not a good platformer. I washed out a Hollow Knight, so I'm not coming to this from some high horse, right? Like,
yeah.
But it was pretty easy except for the secret levels, and I have 100%ed it now. So.
Oh, you went and got every like green check on every level?
Okay, sorry. I haven't gotten every green check, but I did. Oh. I have gotten every Wonder Seed. So I did like I have done all the levels.
So you didn't get all the purple coins?
No, I don't have every single purple coin. So I guess I can't say.
So you lied
fully for sure. Yeah, I lied. Sorry, but not 100%.
No, I think getting every Wonder Seed is pretty much finishing it. Yeah, it's just a fun surprise. Yeah, but don't you think like for me, the way the game feels to just like maneuver a character around the screen is like what makes or breaks a game for me. And I just love I would just run around in a room with Mario in this game. Whereas for Mario World, I don't think I would have as much fun. You know,
the animations are beautiful.
Oh god,
it's fun. It's like so easy. Like they have polished that. And like the whole wonder mechanic of like just doing zany stuff with every single level. The sheer development work to do all those custom wonder effects where there's all sorts of mini games,
and like
it's wild.
There are new enemies that only appear in one level, like
yeah,
they're like cool, like interesting gimmicks of enemies too, and they just use them for one level, and they like push that to its full potential. That's why I'm excited for like
I was excited to see what weird permutation they did every single level. So I found the game delightful. So despite my quibbles, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, those quibbles are very, very little. Like if they weren't there, like if the game just kind of flowed a little better from, level to level, it would just feel perfect to me. 9 out of 10 game, I would say, for me. But then a true indie game that I've played, I'll just say really quickly, is called Voidigo. It's like a top-down roguelike shooter in the vein of Nuclear Throne or Enter the Gungeon or Atomic Crops. Have you guys ever played Atomic Crops?
No.
It's like a farming sim / twin stick shooter. I love that game. That's a really good one. I was addicted to that for a while. But anyway, it kind of has the similar art style to Atomic Crops. Anyways, Voidigo, I highly recommend that one too. It's really fun. It's really funny. Like I don't think and it's all just kind of visual gags too. There's not really any dialogue, and I like laughed hard probably 3 or 4 times so far, just with like surreal, strange animations. Voidigo.
I like the logo. It's neat, nice and chunky, and the character design is cool.
Yeah. I like that one. That's my indie game. Both of those games I would describe. I learned this word when I was reading a review or an interview with the Voidigo developers. Cottagecore. Have you heard of this? Like just like a cozy game, like a Stardew Valley. Yeah, where you just kind of feel kind of like cozy when you're playing the game. And this Voidigo game was described that way, even though it's kind of this crazy, violent, like surreal shooter.
But I'm looking at a neon pink bird shooting lasers. What about this Cottagecore?
I see some fences. I see some.
But but it feels cozy when you're in the world. I don't think it has to be cottages. Like I felt like that way with Super Mario Brothers Wonder too. Just felt like this little world you're in, especially when you're playing handheld. I feel that feeling, that Cottagecore feeling.
So that's the escapism that modern gamers are looking for. They just want to feel comfortable and cozy
in like a different world. Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah. Maybe that's my own take on Cottagecore. I
think a lot of people feel that way.
Those games could be that way. Anyway, those are my things. How about Evan? What are your things?
Last time I was talking about picking up solo games, and I mentioned both Escape the Dark Sector and Tin Helm, and I since then have played both those, and they're both cool. I haven't played a lot of solo games. I've played games that had solo components to them, like Champions and stuff. But Tin Helm is like a true solo game, so I was really interested to try that out. And not only is it a solo game, but it's tiny. It's like comes in like an Altoid can, essentially. It's like a little tin can, and the rules are on cards, and everything is just like a mini card or like a poker card. And then there's a few components like a meeple and some dice and stuff, and it's really simple and it's fun, but I don't really know if it's got a lot of replay value for me. Like I got to play it some more, but basically the idea is it's a dungeon delver, and you have to get through 6 levels of dungeon rooms, and in that time you have to acquire 3 like shard things, and then the game is immediately over. But the shards are really hard to get. You can either trade them with this hard to find creature, or you can find them in a room. You have to do certain things, and the mechanic of dungeon delving is what I thought was neat, and character creation. There's like this, there's like these dual cards to character creation and rooms, which comprise a level of the dungeon. Where for character creation, on one side there's 4 cards, and on one side is like the race, like human or 3 other invented fantasy races or whatever, and then on the other side is like the profession or the background or whatever. So if you want to be a human, you can't have what's on the back. You have to choose the reverse side of one of the other ones, and that creates your character, which I thought was a neat way to utilize like a limited amount of components. And same with the rooms, like each dungeon level is like 6 rooms made up of a deck of 12 cards, and what you do is you shuffle this deck of 12 cards and you look at the top room on the top of the deck and you decide if you want to encounter that room or the next one. And then depending on that decision, like either the next card will establish parameters for that room, or the next card will be the room you have to take, and the current card that you skipped creates the parameters for the room you decided to accept by skipping the first one. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of a cool way to make permutations on a limited amount of components. But I played it about 3 or 4 times, and I already was feeling like either I knew that I wanted to get a certain permutation, and that felt like it took away like kind of the mystique, like, oh, I don't want this room, I want the reverse side of it. So that's why I was saying I don't feel like there's a lot of replay value for me, but it's fun, and the combat is cool, and it's what I expected, and it wasn't very expensive. So
you say with us. Can you say what it's called again? Tin Helm.
Tin Helm. Compared to other, like, I was talking to Sean Boyk from FFG, who's like could tell me all about any game, and he told me that it was the best bang for your buck for in terms of solo games for what you're getting.
Yeah,
I don't know if he said
impressive.
I don't know if he's used those words, but he recommended it for the cost point.
Yeah, it's impressive how much they cram into that, into the so few components. It's cool.
And the rules were really easy to pick up, and it's funny because I feel like when I first opened it, I felt like I needed to have rules for how to read the rules because it's just a deck of cards, but I quickly realized that there's like numbers, so it's almost like they're pages in a rule book, but they're just single cards. And there's about 3 cards worth of rules, 6 pages, I guess. And then you're just going, you're playing.
Are they little tiny cards?
Yep. I don't know if they're mini cards, but they might be smaller than mini cards. They have very rounded corners, and and Escape the Dark Sector, conversely, was a lot more narrative and less like quickly set up and jump into it. And I played that with Megan, and that was pretty fun. I had some really bad dice rolls, and I made some dumb decisions, and these like cyborgs in a bar killed us, and we lost. It was funny. Like, it was funny to lose that way. But that was a fun game. I won't go into detail about it because I want to play it a few more times before I have an opinion on it.
That's like the sequel to Escape the Dark Castle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Has a lot of dice. I was surprised. There's a bunch of custom dice, but it's not really chunky. It all makes sense pretty easily, and yeah.
Cool stuff. All right, Fisher. Already talked about Wonder. Any more thoughts on Wonder?
No, I think that covers it. Like I said, it was the perfect hospital game for like just playing in short little stints while the baby was sleeping. And it was like it was just a very good time. Like, it was such a delightful little game that I'm playing during this like important moment of my life.
Dude,
it was pretty good.
You're gonna go back. Like, I remember during that time I was really into Binding of Isaac. So now Binding of Isaac has this like nostalgia for when my baby was born. Which is kind of interesting one to do.
No, I'm like, it's a good game. I'm sorry to laugh. It's just the contrast of
well, it's like little baby. Every character in the game is like a little baby. So I was like, this is like my baby. It's cute like my baby.
No,
shooting blood from its eyes. Yeah.
I have nostalgia for Gravity Falls, that cartoon, because I was watching a lot of that when Signy was very little, and
cool.
Yeah, totally get it.
I had these ambitions, like I was talking to my friend before, like I was off, and like I haven't really had a chance to play as many games lately, and he's like, are there any games you're looking forward to playing while you're off on parental leave? And I was like, I'm gonna finally play some Baldur's Gate. And that was adorable that I thought that was going to happen. I didn't even launch Baldur's Gate. Too involved. The other game I did play, though, besides Mario, was Chants of Sinar. I don't remember if I've mentioned on the podcast. I was trying to... I think I talked to you about it, Anders, at the local pickup event.
Yeah,
so
you did.
I was trying to remember if I talked about it on the podcast or not.
No, you didn't.
It's cool. It's this kind of smaller game, isometric view, and you play as this character exploring this tower. Fairly quickly, it's kind of equivalent to like the Tower of Babel, and there's like all these people in it, these societies that speak these different languages, and they're all symbolic languages, and they're all very simple symbolic languages, and you don't speak any of them at the start of the game. And like the main mechanic of the game is kind of this deduction puzzle of going around, and you can talk to people and you see the little symbols they're saying to you pop up in speech bubbles, or their symbols are used on like in text around the world, and you have to kind of use deduction and reasoning to kind of figure out what all the different symbols represent and translate their language, this simple little language. And then there are multiple of these, and then you start having to like translate between multiple languages that use different
so how does the
different
game
sentence structures
how
and
does
stuff.
the gameplay like play out? Like what are you how you're interacting with it? Like what are you doing?
So it's kind of this isometric view, and your character is moving around the world, and so you kind of do a lot of exploring and little puzzle solving, and you can interact with people by hitting A when you're near them.
So it's like environmental puzzles?
Yeah, and mostly environmental puzzles, and you'll like find signs or old murals, or you'll talk to a person and little word bubbles will pop up. And when you see these symbols, you can open up this menu that shows you all of the symbols from this language you've seen before, and then you can type guesses into this UI for what you think the symbol represents. And then in the future, when you see that symbol in the world, your guess of what it might represent pops up above it, and that kind of helps you give this tool for translating it. And then the last thing to like truly decode is you have this notebook, and as you reach certain milestones, you get pictures in the notebook, and if you match, you can match symbols to the pictures, and if you correctly match all the symbols to all the pictures in a whole spread of your notebook, it like locks in and you unlock the true meaning of all of those symbols. And so you can kind of like get the true translation of a language, but you kind of have to do a lot of guesswork to get to being able to match those up in the first place. And so it's actually a pretty clever little deduction way to do the deduction in a way that like means you have to do the work and you can't just brute force it for the most part. But is pretty intuitive. It kind of reminds me of like Return of the Obra Dinn, if you guys have heard of that game.
Yeah, never played it.
That's like very... This is kind of the more approachable version of that same deduction mechanic, except applied to language instead of murders. But it's a little more approachable and thus a little more brute forceable sometimes, but it's still like very well done. And I there's some awkward stuff in the game, a lot of backtracking or wandering around empty environments, but I thought it was a good time, and it was thought provoking and interesting. So I had fun with that one.
Cool.
20% off on Steam right now.
Oh.
Overwhelmingly positive reviews. I might play this one. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. Like I said, there's some backtracking and wandering around, but the puzzles are pretty tight and like
cool,
engaging.
Nice. All right, that brings us to our final segment of the show. What is Andrew into?
My own segment, all for me.
Is it a sub-segment?
It's funny. It's always what we end on is what Andrew's into.
Well, apart from,
and by this time, I'm always like tired. Yeah,
it's like
I'm gonna focus.
Yeah, I know. I always feel like I should just, I should just hurry up and be done. Yeah. Apart from just living down here and experiencing life in another country, which has been pretty awesome. I've been very, very into that. Improving my Spanish, becoming more brave, speaking to people in Spanish. That's been really fun because I'm actually getting better and gaining confidence. It's hard because lots of times I feel like I have like a witty thing to say, and then I need to sit and translate it in my mind, and then I get it, and then by the time I get it, the moment has passed. You know,
the moment's gone.
Yep, I can't chime in that way yet. But yeah, that's been really fun. I've really been enjoying it. But yeah, I'm still reading Lord of the Rings. Every morning I wake up and I sit outside and I read a chapter of Lord of the Rings or part of a chapter. And that's a really awesome way to start the day. And I just finished Fellowship and got into Two Towers today. So that's fun. Cool. That's a very good book. I like that book a lot. I may have said that before.
Fellowship?
The whole thing, Lord of the Rings.
Oh, just the whole thing.
The Fellowship is like
is this an older...
my favorite stuff, my favorite parts.
Yeah, I felt that Two Towers, beginning of Two Towers, dragged, or it didn't drag, but that was the more harder part to get through for me.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, I don't know, it's all cool. Like, were you gonna say say something, Evan?
Oh, I was just curious, like, what edition of the Lord of the Rings do you have? Do you have like an old beat up copy from like the 70s or
no, actually
newer?
I have a copy.
I'm just curious. I
have a copy that I bought when when Fellowship came out in movie theaters. So I have like a one volume edition that has the Nazgul on a horse from the like production photo on the on the front.
Paperback?
It's paperback. Yeah, I have a 3-volume hardcover that I had, but I just wanted a copy that I could just carry around and not have to worry about keeping all nice. Yeah. So I bought the that's the one I've used the most. But yeah, I really like it. I always flip over the back and like look at the picture of Orlando Bloom that's the one. Yep. It's got Orlando Bloom on the back, and he's got a blue screen behind him, which I love. Like, they didn't even bother to, like, fake in an environment.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. Check it out.
Beautiful blue waters of Rivendell.
That's right.
Looks like a cactus.
That's his quiver of arrows.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Just
like arrows. From the making of... DVD,
like I said, it's like the front is just a production. It's effectively like, here's a dude on a horse with a floodlight behind him. Let's put it on the cover.
I always hate it when they just use like the movie stuff for the book cover.
Yeah, I love it. I love it though because of that. I don't know. I think it's very charming.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been reading that. That's great. And I'm still waiting for Baldur's Gate, on Xbox to come out. So I'm just dinking around, trying stuff out. And my son downloaded Skyrim the other day, and I remembered, oh yeah, you can get mods for the Xbox Series X for Skyrim. So I spent some time researching mods and then installing mods and seeing how it looks and what happens. And that's actually pretty fun. It's pretty daunting. And the interface for getting mods on the Xbox is terrible.
Oh, really?
Oh, God, it's awful. Yeah, you have to like effectively search. You have to look up the mod, search for it, and you might not find it because they've been modding this game, for over a decade. So people have like taken other people's mods and re-uploaded them in different ways or, with permission from the original creator. Eventually, I just found the highest rated bar, and that has all of the most used and talked up mods on the internet. So I was able to find pretty much everything there. But I found a mod that lets you play as just go into the open world and play as not the Dragonborn. It gives you like a new starting location and like a new backstory. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And it's like a small little thing, and it dumps me in a completely like really challenging part of the map as I'm way underleveled for everything around me. But it was interesting. Anyway, so like just doing this is like starting giving me ideas for Earthborne stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I was like, yeah, what if, because like it's like such a small change, but like just kind of recontextualizes everything by just doing that. So anyway, give me ideas. Give me ideas. That's pretty much it.
It'd be cool if the ending of that modded game ends with you in the wagon with the Dragonborn at the beginning of Skyrim.
Yeah,
and you know that the dragon attack is coming.
Yeah.
You're one of the randos in the...
That would be really cool. Yeah. I wonder, like, there must not be any end game for it. You just go and do stuff until you're sick of it. The classic Skyrim experience.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's it. We did it.
We did it.
That's the end of the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for talking, you guys. It's great seeing you all. And we'll see you next time. A couple weeks. Send in your questions. Hopefully you get your game. If you haven't gotten it yet, hopefully I get my game. And I'm an expert on it for the next show. We'll see you later.
I'm sure
Bye.
you will be.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.